Okay, and we are live. Welcome everybody. Today we're going to be discussing this study in MIT that reveals ways in which 40 hertz sensory stimulation may preserve the brain's white matter. Now, why does that matter? Why does white matter matter? You know, there's about 25 to 30% of the population will be affected by some form of brain-related degeneration, whether it's dementia, stroke, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, brain tumors, or other mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. And that's a big deal. So here they're finding that the 40 hertz stimulation actually affects white matter in the brain. Sorry. Now, what is and why is the brain's white matter important? The brain's white matter consists of bundles of nerve fibers. These are called axons. They're covered by something called the myelin. The myelin is a fatty substance that insulates these fibers, and they help the efficient transmission of electrical signals between different brain regions. So without this happening, you can't do things as simple as lifting up your hands or even speaking. So white matter really gets its name from the whitish appearance of the myelin. And so it matters for many reasons. Number one, communication. It's important for communication because it connects the different parts of the brain. It is the part of the brain that is communicating to other parts of the brain so that we can function, so we can do things like look or read or move our hands or speak or even process things. So it's connecting all the parts of the brain, allowing regions of the brain to communicate with each other. And this coordination is essential for functions like movement, cognition, sensory processing, basically everything that we need to actually participate in this physical realm. And number two, there's something called myelination. The myelin sheath that covers the axons increases the speed of the signal transmission. What this means is that you're able to process things faster. A lot of times people get older and they say, oh, I'm not able to remember this, or I'm just not able to speak fast enough. I'm not able to react fast enough. If you look at a kid who's in their prime reacting to a ball coming to them, the reaction time is a lot faster versus someone who may be 80 years old. The reaction time is a lot slower. Why? Because this myelination is not happening as much in older people, right? So myelination allows for faster and more precise communication between neurons. Number three, cognition and learning. White matter integrates learning, it integrates memory, it integrates all cognitive functioning. So it's crucial for all those things. And when your white matter is damaged, this can lead to issues with attention. This can lead to issues with decision making, with self-control, with emotional regulation, being unable to regulate emotions, and even unable to regulate speech as well. And finally, number four, neurodegenerative diseases. So we see things like what we talked about, like MS, like Alzheimer's disease, like dementia. White matter damage and degradation can affect motor function, memory, speech, and other cognitive abilities. Another thing that white matter does is, as it's helping your brain communicate, it helps it communicate faster, it helps it communicate correctly so that proper signals are going out. So we're going to go through this study on 40 hertz and really why it matters. So gamma frequency light, specifically 40 hertz, and sound stimulation, so light and sound, preserves myelination. We talked about how that increases the speed of which communication is happening. Sorry, I just lost my notes here. I'm just going to pull them up. And why that's important. Sorry, I'm just going to pull up my notes here. Why that's important is because we need, yikes, where's it going? Where are my notes going, man? We need Sorry, my notes are all over the place right now, man. There you go. Okay, there it is. So we need this in order to function. We talked about that, right? We talked about 25-30% of the population gets affected by this. And this recent MIT study is pretty groundbreaking because this technology is very nascent in its field. Okay, so what's happening here? So the early stage trials of Alzheimer's disease patient studies and mouse models of the disease have suggested positive impacts on pathology and symptoms from exposure to light and sound presented at the gamma band frequency, specifically 40 hertz. A new study zeroes in on how 40 hertz sensory stimulation helps to sustain an essential process in which the signal-sending branches of neurons, called axons, are wrapped in fatty insulation called myelin, often called the brain's white matter. So we already discovered this, I did in another video, on how this affects gray matter, which is important because gray matter gives us the ability to learn. But now we realize that 40 hertz actually also preserves white matter. It has a positive impact on white matter, which gives us the ability for our brain to communicate. And our brain communicating then enables us to do everyday function as well. So again, previous publications from our lab have mainly focused on neural protection. And this is what we've seen in the past, but we didn't realize that it's also speeding up neural activity. So here, this year, Cognito Therapeutics, the spin-off company that licensed MIT's sensory stimulation technology, published phase 2 human trials. So they're now on phase 2, indicating 40 hertz light and sound stimulation significantly slowed the loss of myelin in volunteers with Alzheimer's. So this is huge because the reason why people are losing their functionality and losing their ability to do everyday tasks is not only is the brain's gray matter hardening, but also the white matter is being affected as well in its speed of communication. And so there's a lot of, I've read through this entire study and I've summarized it. And so I'll give you my points here, basically in this study, so that, if you want to read it, I'll leave the link down below as well. But number one, it promotes myelin preservation. So what we've seen in this study is that 40 hertz gamma frequency sensory stimulation can help protect the myelin. This, what we talked about earlier, this fatty sheath surrounding the nerve fibers in the brain is critical for efficient signal transmission, and its preservation is important to maintain brain function, just for your brain's ability to communicate. And this also supports, there's this huge word here, and this word is oligodendrocytes. It supports oligodendrocyte survival. So what are these cells? They're responsible for producing the myelin. So we saw that the 40 hertz stimulation showed higher levels of oligodendrocyte survival. This affects brain health, specifically because it helps in producing more myelin. So this can help diseases specifically with MS, where there's a significant myelin degradation and myelin aren't being produced. Okay, what else did we find out in this study? Number 3, it improves neural communication. We see that 40 hertz stimulation improves electrical performances of the neural axons in critical brain areas like the corpus callosum. So what is the corpus callosum? It's the connection between your brain's hemispheres. So the brain has 2 hemispheres, and the communication that's happening between those 2 hemispheres is enhanced. And when that's enhanced, it also enhances cognitive functions like memory, coordination, and processing speed. So your brain's ability to process information, to input that information, and then to output that information as well. Another thing is that they saw that it reduces brain inflammation. Inflammation is common in a lot of neurodegenerative diseases because when there's inflammation buildup, then the brain is unable to communicate. And when you use 40 hertz stimulation, specifically through the visual cortex, it reduces this inflammatory response, and it's key for brain cells, for things like astrocytes and microglia, which are activated when the brain is injured. They're basically the brain's immune cells. They're activated in brain injury, they're activated in brain disease, and they're activated also in brain cleansing. These get activated, which lower inflammation, which means that you can have a healthier brain. And it slows down cognitive decline. So you wonder why, well, there's some people who are really sharp, even in their old age, but then there's some people who slow down. You may even notice, I'm in my 40s, and I notice it in my 40s. Just slowing down, memory slowing down, your ability to process things slowing down. And that's due in part because of brain inflammation. Number 5, it fights off oxidative stress. Now, we talk about taking in antioxidants. We talk about doing things for our body that will reduce stress, because we know stress is a killer. It is also a killer for the brain. The stimulation of the 40 Hertz therapy reduces oxidative stress. And how does it do that? By reducing what's called cell death. And this is normally caused by different heavy metals. We could get it sometimes through our water or through what we eat, or just in our environment. If you're in environments where you're breathing in things that are not healthy. And we do that every day. Even when you go outside, you're getting oxidative stress. Every single day, our bodies are getting oxidative stress by what we're eating, by the stress that we're putting on our bodies, by mental health stress. And what the 40 Hertz therapy is doing is it's protecting against this oxidative stress. And it prevents further brain damage, especially in aging brains. But also what we found, and we'll talk about that in a different study, but what we found also, it helps with the development of a child's brain as well. Number 6, it enhances synaptic preservation. So the synapses are the connectors and the connections between neurons. They're flying through the spaces in the brain and connecting from neuron to neuron. These are important, especially for communication, for sensory processing, for memory, even for speech. So you'll notice that people with brain damage have trouble with speech. And this study found that the 40 Hertz stimulation actually preserves these synaptic proteins, helping maintain brain circuits and cognitive functions. And these are most disrupted when there's brain damage. Oops. Okay, and we're back. Sorry about that. Well, we were talking about how the synapses are damaged when there's Alzheimer's or dementia or different types of brain degradation. And this study found that it preserves those synaptic proteins, helping the brain's circuits and cognitive functions perform much better. They're disrupted in things like Alzheimer's and other similar brain degenerative conditions. So what is the potential for therapeutic use? Really, for anybody looking to enhance their brain, looking to prevent cognitive decline or cognitive degradation. We've already seen that 40 Hertz therapy affects gray matter in the brain. What's promising about this is that we see that it also preserves white matter in the brain. While the gray matter in the brain is important for learning and continuing to form memories, the white matter in the brain is especially important for just everyday cognitive functioning. So there you guys have it, a quick study on this. I'll leave the link down below if you're interested. And please let us know if you're interested in devices like these, because we have made devices like these patent pending that are a little bit smaller, portable, they're USB powered, and these devices are things that you can take anywhere with you. I have one literally in my car, I have one in my office, we have one in the kitchen, because we've seen how it's affected us. This is the science behind it, but the truth is, when your brain is healthy, your life is healthy, your relationships are healthy, everything matters on that, right? If your brain functioning is not healthy, then everything else in your life is affected. So we've seen it in our lives, we've seen it in our friends' lives, in countless people's lives, and now we're seeing also the second phase of the human trials, and things are very promising. So it's an exciting time for brain health. If you have any questions about it, please let us know and contact us at www.ediblelights.com. All right, so there you guys have it. And until next time, we hope that you will continue to prioritize your brain health, because everything else in life matters. Okay, until next time, bye for now. Have a wonderful day, have a wonderful evening and morning.